What's up, guys? My name is Asteroid and I'm your coach of the Chicago Chandelures for Season 3 of the MPL, the Major Pokemon League. If you guys are excited for this draft analysis, smash that like button for me. If you guys don't know what the MPL is, it's very similar to other leagues like the GBA and the UCL. It is a competitive draft-based format league battle system. Nailed it. But anyways, it's a giant collaboration of a bunch of YouTubers coming together and doing this fantastic tournament type thing. This is my first time ever being in a league like this, and I'm definitely a bit nervous, but I'm very confident in our draft, and hopefully you guys are excited to be a part of the Chicago Chandelures family. I'm definitely looking forward to it. If you guys want to see the draft rules in full detail, I'll link the MPL hub down there, check it out. And also make sure to follow the MPL on Twitter because all of the draft picks and any information you might need to know was tweeted over there. Anyways, you might already know what my draft is if you followed me on Twitter or if you followed the MPL on Twitter, but that's besides the point because today we're going to be going in more depth about it. Now, before we get started, a quick summary as to how the draft went down. There were 12 rounds in the draft, and every single Pokemon in the game was separated into a different tier, and each tier had a different point value. Like, for example, Tier 1 Pokemon were 100 points, Tier 2 Pokemon were 90 points, Tier 3 Pokemon were 80 points, and etc. And these are not Smogon tiers, by the way. We're not going based on Smogon with OU, UU, etc. It was completely custom tiers, and every single Pokemon was separated into one of them. Now, the thing about this is that you only have 500 points. So besides the first 3 rounds, you only have 500 points to spend on your Pokemon. You're required to at least have 8 Pokemon, but no more than 12. So with your 500 points, you have to find a good balance between the amount of Pokemon you're getting and the strength of the Pokemon you're getting. You can spend all your points on a bunch of lower tiered Pokemon and have a full team of 12, but the downside to that is that they're lower tiered Pokemon, they're not going to be as good. On the flip side, you can spend all your points on really high-tiered Pokemon, and you'll have a really strong team, but you're not going to have a lot of options. So you got to find a good balance between the two, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of finding that balance. I mentioned it earlier, but the first 3 rounds were completely free, and they didn't cost towards your 500-point balance. In round 1, you had to choose a Tier 1 Pokemon. In round 2, you had to choose a Tier 2 Pokemon. And in round 3, you had to choose a Tier 3 Pokemon. And round 4 was the final limiting round, I guess. In round 4, you had to choose your Mega. And most of the Megas are free, but you can actually go to a lower tiered Mega and pick up a Mega that is not as strong, and you can actually gain points from it. This is all explained on the actual hub itself, but for the most part, round 1, 2, 3, and 4 was Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, then Mega, and then the rest of the rounds counts towards your budget, and you can spend your points however you would like and get any Pokemon from any tier. There's also this thing called franchising, and I did end up franchising a Pokemon, but basically what that means is 24 hours before the draft, you are able to spend extra points to call dibs on a particular Pokemon that happened to be on a team that is no longer in the MPL, or you can franchise Pokemon, I believe, that weren't chosen last season. So all of those Pokemon are available for franchising. You can basically spend extra points to guarantee the Pokemon you would like. Now, I did franchise, and I franchised my Mega, but we're not going to get into the Mega just yet because that's round 4. We're going to start off with my round 1 pick. In round 1, I had the 10th pick, which wasn't really ideal because these, of course, are the really powerful Pokemon like Landorus and Volcanion and Latios and Azumarill and Scizor. Like, all these really good Pokemon you would usually find in OU are in Tier 1. Now, I was 10th, which meant that I was pretty much last, which kind of sucked, but it wasn't that bad because I managed to get my hands on a very awesome Pokemon as my first pick, and I managed to pick up Mew. Shout out to Original 151, also known as Vinny. I managed to pick up Mew for our round 1 pick, and the reason why I chose Mew is because Defog is a really nice move, especially in this format. Being able to get rid of entry hazards is a very good thing. But the main reason why I chose Mew here is because of how diverse it is. You can run so many different things on it, and it gives you a lot of options, which I thought was very good, especially early on in the draft. I figured it'd be nice to have that much diversity because we can bring like an offensive set one battle, we can bring a very defensive set one battle, we can bring a support set one battle. Like there's a lot of roles that you can play. So I just figured it was a pretty safe choice, I guess, to go with just for the first round, and I'm very, very happy with it. I would have probably preferred Excadrill just because having Mold Breaker, Earthquake, and being able to set up rocks and being able to rapid spin is a very, very awesome thing. Despite that though, I'm very happy with the ground type we ended up with, and I'll be getting to that later on in the video. But the next pick I actually had first. So for tier 2, round 2 in the draft, I was first pick. So basically what this meant is I could choose any Pokemon in tier 2, and there were a lot of good Pokemon in tier 2. I could pretty much choose any Pokemon and I was guaranteed to get that Pokemon. And what I ended up going for is Hydreigon. The reason why I went with Hydreigon is because of the fact that it's a very, very powerful offensive sweeper. You can run it Scarfed, you can run it Specs. It learns a lot of coverage moves as well, which is great. I was considering picking up Mamoswine or Sylveon or Hippowdon. I mean, there's a lot of great options in tier 2, but ultimately I figured that the levitating Hydreigon would be nice, especially considering the ground immunity. And there were a bunch of Pokemon that were weak to ground that I planned on adding to my team, so I wanted to make sure I covered that ground type weakness, and I figured Hydreigon would not be a bad way to go about that. Now I could have went with Dragonite. Dragonite was the other dragon in this tier. I believe Salamence is also in this tier, but I did ultimately go with Hydreigon. Maybe Dragonite or Salamence would have been better for me, but I think overall Hydreigon's a pretty awesome Pokemon. It's a fun Pokemon to use, and I'm pretty happy with it. So next up with round 3, we got 5th pick, which is honestly not that bad. There's a lot of good Pokemon in tier 3, a lot of great Pokemon in tier 3. So this was a hard decision, and I kind of just YOLO'd this round. I YOLO'd a lot of the rounds. I basically just looked at what I had and then made a decision based off of that. And I looked at what was left, and that's basically what I ended up doing. I would say the round 2 pick was probably the hardest pick, just because of the fact that I was first and everything was available to me. It's definitely a lot easier to make a decision as the draft goes on because there's less Pokemon to choose from, and it kind of narrows down your decision. But for round 3, I decided to go with Volcarona. And the reason for this is pretty simple. I love Volcarona. That is the only thing to it. Volcarona has put in work for me in the past. It's a very, very good Pokemon. Pretty bulky. It can be pretty bulky. Also very specially offensive. It learns Quiver Dance, Bug Buzz, Giga Drain, Fiery Dance. You guys know how I love setup Pokemon, and Volcarona is probably one of my favorite setup Pokemon. It's just like my playstyle. You know, I love Quiver Dancing. I love Fiery Dancing. And there's a lot of chances there to really boost your stats and get a sweep off. Now, the one downside to Volcarona is it's weak to ground, which Hydreigon does cover, but it's also weak to rocks. We do have Defog on Mew, and we also do have a bit of protection with our franchised Pokemon, but for the most part, we have a very, very big rock weakness, which was not really ideal, and I do end up making up for this later on in the draft. So that's pretty much it for Volcarona, one of my favorite Gen 5 Mons, and I really hope that it'll be able to put in work. As I said, it was a hard choice considering the amount of Pokemon in tier 3, but I'm pretty happy with it. Hopefully you guys are happy with it as well. Now, our 4th pick, our 4th round, this is where I franchised a Pokemon. Round 4 is the Mega round, so you have to choose a Mega. Most of the Megas are free, as I said, they don't count towards your points. Pretty much all the Megas are free except for some lower tiered ones that actually give you some points back. Your Mega is probably the most important part of your team, and I didn't really want to cut corners here, so I went all out. And before the draft even started, I franchised, costing me 30 points. I franchised Mega Sableye. You guys know how much I love Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye is on the banner of our channel. That is how much I love Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye is probably my second mascot, and in my personal opinion, I believe it is the best Mega in the game. And I'm very, very happy that I got Mega Sableye, because Mega Sableye, Magic Bounce, the Calm Minds, the Will-O-Wisp, it just puts in work. The only downside to using Mega Sableye in a draft-based league format is the fact that you have to Mega Evolve him the second you send him out. So the first turn he's in, you have to click the Mega Evolution button. You cannot wait. You can't hold on to Prankster for a bit. you have to Mega Evolve them the second you send them out, which obviously really sucks, but we do have that one turn of Prankster, and I think that'll be enough. So, yes, I did go with Mega Sableye. It did cost me a few points, but I'm very, very happy with it. Now, looking at our team right now, with Mew, Hydreigon, Volcarona, and Mega Sableye, we have a very, very big Fairy weakness, and also a very, very big Rock weakness. And I do cover for that with these next few picks here. Volcarona does resist Fairy, but honestly, it's not the greatest Fairy counter, I guess. And I feel like I did do a good job of covering up my tracks and kind of filling the holes in my team as the draft progressed. And that's it for the limiting rounds. Rounds 5 through 12 are just choose whatever you would like that is left, and you can choose from any tier, but it does count towards your points. Anyways, round 5, we had, let's see, we had 7th pick, which wasn't bad. It could have been better, but it wasn't bad. And for this pick, I figured I'd go with a Pokemon that was pretty powerful. I didn't want to go all out in terms of like a really high tiered Pokemon. I wanted to find a good balance between the two because I don't want to waste all my points. And especially considering how we just spent 30 points before the draft even started on Mega Sableye, I didn't want to waste any more than I had to. So I decided to go with Cobalion. Now, Cobalion is a Pokemon that I don't usually use. I believe it does get Stealth Rocks. And more importantly, though, it's very, very bulky. It adds a Fighting type to my team, which is great. Adds a Steel type to my team, which is also great for the Fairies. Now, sadly, Cobalion does not resist Fairy, but it does resist Rock, which is really what I was going for there. And I also wanted somewhat of a physical attacker because Mew is kind of both. Hydreigon can be physical, I guess, but mostly special. Volcarona is mostly special. Mega Sableye is mostly special. So I wanted to grab a Pokemon that could be used physically because I didn't want just all special attackers. That would suck. So we have Cobalion there. Should be interesting. It also does get Volt Switch, and usually you want to have U-Turn or Volt Switch in some fashion on your team. So I'm definitely happy about that. And that's pretty much it. So next up, round 6, another just draft whatever you want round. I was pick 6, which is like right in the middle. But I opted to go for Talonflame in this round. And the reason for that is because I wanted another ground immunity. Cobalion added another ground type weakness that I was not a fan of, and I didn't like that, so I decided to go with a Pokemon that was immune to ground. But more importantly than that ground immunity, I wanted a Pokemon that was fast and physically offensive. And Talonflame just completely fit that mold. So Talonflame, I definitely think it was a pretty good choice. It also does learn U-Turn. Now obviously Talonflame is pretty predictable. Just Choice Band and Brave Bird your way to victory. But I think despite that, Talonflame was a pretty good choice. Because we do have the U-Turn there, the ground immunity, the fairy resistance, and it's going to be great. Now sadly, that is another 4 times weakness to rocks, which is not ideal. But in round 7, I do make up for that, as well as in round 9. But there was one thing I forgot to mention about Cobalion. With Cobalion, another reason why I chose him was because of Justified. We did have a bit of a dark weakness, I guess, to an extent. And I figured having that Justified on there could be pretty nice. If we predict some dark type attacks, we could definitely put in work there. Round 7, we got first pick, and I managed to scoop up Empoleon. Now, Empoleon, I wanted for a lot of reasons. The first reason is because its nickname. You guys know, I name my Empoleons Flats. It's such a perfect nickname that I felt like I needed it. So, that's reason 1. The second reason is because it resists Fairy, which is great. It also resists Rock, and it's a Water type, which we did not have previously. Cobalion is a Steel type that doesn't resist Fairy, so I figured having that other Steel type that does resist Fairy could be nice. And Empoleon also has access to Rocks. I think it does get access to Defog. It has Scald. It can be run physical to an extent. It's also very bulky on top of that. So Empoleon I felt was a pretty good choice, especially considering it was only 70 points, and it really does help out against those Rock types, which is where I really, really needed it. Now, next up, round 8, I had the 4th pick, which was pretty nice, and I managed to pick up Electros. When it comes down to it, I really just wanted an electric type. I felt that we didn't really have much to handle water types, and there's a lot of good water types in this format. So definitely wanted to cover my tracks there with the Electros. Also on top of that, Electros is another ground immunity, which is fantastic. And on top of that, it has no weaknesses. No weaknesses at all. It can also be run physical or special, which I thought was great. It can carry Volt Switch and U-Turn. So overall, I thought it was a great Pokemon, and I did scoop that up. I'm very, very happy with that pick there. We only ended up with a total of 10 Pokemon because I eventually ran out of points. But for round 9 here, we had pick 7. And I'm very, very surprised that this Pokemon lasted this long. But from Tier 1, I spent 100 points to pick up the Garchomp. The reason why I picked up Garchomp is because you know what? It's a fantastic Pokemon. It does resist Rock, which is great. It is weak to Ice and Dragon and Fairy, but I felt like I had plenty of Pokemon to handle those weaknesses. And overall, it's just a fast, physical attacker. And I was really looking for more physical offense on my team because up to this point, you know, it was round 9. I was almost out of points, and I felt like we were really lacking in the physical department. So that's why I scooped up Garchomp. And the main reason, the main reason I scooped up Garchomp was mostly for that Earthquake Stab. Because I didn't have a ground type. I had nothing to really defend against Volt Switches, which could have been problematic. So I felt Garchomp was a necessity for our team, and it does give me that protection against the Volt Switches. It gives me that immunity to electric types, which is great. And seeing as Earthquake is one of the best moves in the game, I felt that it was worth it. Now, our final pick, I only had like 60 points left at this point in time. And for our round 10 pick, I was considering going with Magikarp. Not gonna lie, I was literally going to draft Magikarp. Because at that point, I felt like my team was as complete as it could ever be, and I couldn't afford any Pokemon above like tier 4. I think tier 4 is like 60 points. So I was considering honestly picking up Magikarp, just because that'd be amazing if I had a Magikarp on my team. But ultimately, I couldn't resist. And you know, we already have my second favorite Pokemon on this team with Mega Sableye. So I couldn't resist not picking up the Lapras himself. So yes, I did pick up the Lapras. And honestly, Lapras is a pretty good Pokemon. It is in like the lowest tier in this format. But to be fair, Lapras can be run physical. It can be run special. It can Dragon Dance. It can run Assault Vest. It can run Choice Specs. Heck, I have even run Choice Scarf Lapras. It can be run with Rain Dance and Curse, Hydration, Water Absorb. There's a lot of options here. And it does give me that water type immunity, which is fantastic. So, ultimately, I felt like Lapras was not a bad choice. And I feel like it'll really help us out, especially considering we didn't have any ice types. Lapras is our only ice type on this team. So, yeah, I figured it was worth picking up. But I think that's honestly pretty much it for this video. I felt like I did a pretty good job drafting these Pokemon. I'm using a lot of Pokemon here that I love to use, and I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to the MPL. The battling starts on June 19th. It's a Sunday, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching. I really hope you guys are fans of the Chicago Chandelures, and I hope we can do well in this league. I'm going to do my best, but ultimately I joined just to have fun, and that is my main priority. As Karen says in the Gen 2 games, strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon, that is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should try to win with the Pokemon they love best. And with that, I'll see you next time. Peace!